I am Rachel Humphrey with It's Personal Stories, a hospitality podcast, and I am extremely excited to be joined today with Tina Patel, the CFO of Promise Hotels. Tina, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, I am extra excited for this one, and we will talk about why in a little bit. But I do want to just start off with you sharing a little bit about your journey to leadership. Those who listen to the program often know it's one of the things that I think is most special about hospitality is that no two paths have to be the same. So tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got to where you are today, and if you think there were any pivotal moments in that career journey for you.
Sure, absolutely. First, I want to say thank you for having me on the podcast. I'm glad to be here, and congratulations on such an amazing platform to continue to put leadership and inspirational stories in our industry on here. So thank you for that. My story kind of starts with immigration. Immigrated from the UK here to the United States in 1979 when I was 7 years old. Landed in Kansas City, Missouri, and that's why I am a huge Kansas City Chiefs fan, and it's a good time to be a fan. Landed in Kansas City. My parents ended up moving into a hotel room. My dad, that's where we lived, and my mom worked at the front office while we were at school, and my dad went and worked manufacturing. It was just a place for us to live. We had no ties to the hotel or anything. They immigrated here looking for the American dream and just better opportunities. Thereafter, we moved they bought a hotel in Sedalia, Missouri, a 30-unit roadside hotel. And that was 1981, I believe. And we just moved inside the hotel. It gave us a place to stay. My mom already knew how to run a front office from Kansas City. So she ended up running the hotel along with my dad. And we really were raised inside the hotel. Unfortunately, it was also the 80s with the oil bust. And so, business was really down. And so my dad ended up having to go outside to go work at a manufacturing job to kind of bring home a paycheck so we could pay the mortgage on the hotel. And my mom would run the hotel while we were at school and stuff. And so we learned every job for an independent hotel. I remember, since I'm the oldest daughter of my dad, I would be the maintenance person. So I would be his helper to fix busted pipes. I know how to sand a wall, know how to run the front office. So we did, when we say we did every job, I literally did every job. So you have to imagine, as a child, having to do that and then going to school and kind of seeing the world outside of the bubble that we were in. I remember saying, I will never be in the hotel business. I hate the hotel business. I'll never marry anybody in the hotel business. So again, be careful what you ask for. So there was a big emphasis in our family for education. So I went ahead and went off to University of Missouri in Kansas City, planning to have a career somewhere in the medical field. So I got my degree in biology. Funny enough, at the same time, my parents had then sold their hotel and other businesses that they had created in Sedalia, Missouri, and planned to move to Paris, Texas, and purchase an old hotel that was closed. The same time, I met my future husband, Pete. Everyone knows my Pete. His name's Paresh. At the same time, we connected and decided that we were going to, start a life together. And so I was at a crossroads where I made a decision with my family that, I will help you move to Paris, Texas, help open this closed hotel, and at the same time plan for our wedding. So again, dove into renovations and learned how to renovate a hotel with my dad and my mom. And so then once Pete and I got married, I moved to Tulsa, where he was already based, and he was already working again in the hotel industry. He graduated with business administration marketing, and we landed at a hotel where we were managers and again, we ran a 54-unit Best Western hotel. That was our first venture together in the franchise world. So that's where we learned our franchise world. And we cranked it for 4 or 5 years working for the family. And due to our hard work, we were able to start getting ownership through our sweat equity. And we probably did copy pasted and developed 3 or 4 more hotels after that. Then it was about 2002. I had my first child, Jaden, and my youngest child in 2004, Talon. And again, we're at a crossroads of Pete and I, knowing that we came from zero generational wealth. What are we going to do next? So we decided to venture out, and we created Promise Hotels. That started in 2008. Timing wasn't great. We just bought 2 hotels, and then the financial crisis happened. So again, now we've learned how to manage ourselves through a financial crisis and tight cash flow. And then once we managed through that, we were able to continue to grow our company, where in our career, we had about 30 hotels that we've either bought, sold, developed, acquired. At our highest number, we had 13 at one time. We are now at 7 hotels with 713 rooms and 165 associates that work for us. So that's kind of my quick story.
I love it. And you serve as CFO of Promise Hotels.
Yes. Yes.
Well, it's an incredible story, and one, so much of what you learned from your family, so much of what you learned in school, and then with Pete. And I want to focus on that for a minute, because we hear all the time, oh, my company is like a family. But in your case, your company is your family, and you and Pete run Promise, a very successful hotel company. Talk to others who either may be contemplating a family business model or who are in one, about how you balance the success of a business, but also being separately a family to your children, to partners, to each other in your personal life, as well as in your family business.
Yeah, Rachel, that's a great question. Again, we've lived it. Since the day we've been married, we have worked together. And so that was a journey, just finding how we fit roles and fit together. In that, I think defining our roles, I found I was really good at math and numbers, even though I didn't go to school for that. In high school, I was on the math club and went to math competition. So numbers were easier to me. And Pete, which is great with his background in marketing and business administration and operations. And so we found skills that complement each other. Now, there was a journey of finding exactly how those roles were defined and learning kind of how to, what I say is, he makes the money, I save the money, and then we both grow the money. But, we still have our knockdown dragouts, but what we do realize is we have the same goals. We're aligned on our goals. We just may disagree on the path to get to those goals. And so then we just kind of come back to that and say, okay, let's figure this out. We're both on the same team. If one of us is not listening to the other, we say, hey, look, we're both on the same team. And so you've got to just respect each other's opinion, and work together. As long as you're aligned on the goals. So the other point you asked about is balance, and how do you balance work life, especially in a family business. And I have a little different take than most people might. We're in a 24-hour, 7 days a week job in our business. And so I don't think there's really a balance. What we try to do is the best each day. Some days I have to prioritize my family over the business. Some days, hey, I have a meeting to go to and I may not make the school play, And so we take each day and each week of prioritizing what's important for that day. And so, I've looked for this work-life balance. I don't think there's a such thing. You just do it every day, and you make sure family's a priority, your business a priority, and your personal self, you're a priority. So.
Well, and I like that, looking at it, what may be the right presence one day may be focused in a different area the next day. It doesn't have to be an established or a set path. One of the things that, even though you have a lot going on as a mom and as a wife, and also running Promise with Pete, you're extremely active in boards, associations, nonprofits, the Federal Reserve, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
I'm curious a couple of things. Number one is why those things are important to you, because you have enough on your plate. You certainly can't be adding more. But also, one of the things that I have found is that I develop different leadership skills in my association or board life or volunteer roles than I do in corporate roles. How has that involvement with those organizations really helped you really fine tune some of your leadership skills?
So I think I found that I can get in my own bubble, just work, life, but there's a bigger piece of this outside of our work-life bubble of things that affect our business and our daily lives that we don't have a voice for. And so, I think one of those things is I started becoming vocal in our business. As soon as I saw an issue or a concern I had, I would reach out to people and say, what's going on with this? Why are they bringing this additional tax? Or why? I started asking questions. And through that, I was able to connect with people and be able to get on these boards that really, show you how everything, the whole economy is impacted by each other. Let's take the Federal Reserve for, let me tell you a quick story about that though. When we first started out in 2008, my job was in the financial role. And then we were buying those 2 hotels. It was my first time reaching out to a bank to get a term sheet and close on a loan. And I remember when the loan officer said, it's going to committee. And I thought all day, my gosh, what are they talking about me? What are they saying about me? And I really remembered saying out loud that someday I'm going to be on a bank board. And fast forward, who would have ever thought that it would be the Federal Reserve Bank Board? And just a side note, I'm also on the bank board that did that loan. I am today on that bank board. So, you can manifest things. But for the Federal Reserve, just to know that, they impact rates that impact the interest rates that impact everybody on the globe, what the Federal Reserve does, and to see the data they have and that they want to hear how it impacts you and our business, even as a small business. It's important. Sometimes we think, well, do we belong in that room? Do we belong in that association? You do. They have all the data in the world, but they don't have real-time data, the boots on the ground. And so I think that's important. Advocacy, our industry has a lot, provides a lot for this economy. And so we have to have a voice on what's taxing us, what policies affect us. And I think recently, I testified at the House Committee on Small Business, Congressional Committee on Small Business. And again, that's me advocating for our industry, for small business, and letting the policymakers know that, hey, there's things that really impact us daily that they don't hear or see unless somebody's telling them. And so I don't know if there's further question, then I answered the question, but I think advocacy is huge.
Well, I think it's great to see too that your curiosity of why is this happening or what does this mean turns into how can I help educate them? You started as curious about what does it mean for us and why. And then you evolve that into maybe I could be the answer to those questions instead of being the one asking them. And certainly the advocacy for the industry in testifying before Congress, again, another step in educating and letting people know the impact and the benefits of the hospitality industry on communities, on the economy, as you mentioned. Let me just elaborate for one question on the advocacy piece. Mm-hmm. Was there a point at which you were thinking, this is important enough that I can't just be asking questions in my head or even reaching out to somebody, but I need to make it part of my business plan to make sure I know my local officials, that I am involved in the state, that I'm involved at the federal level, because you don't just ask questions and try to educate. You are making sure that when a voice is needed, you are there to stand up and raise your hand and say, I'm happy to be that voice and share. Was there a pivotal moment for you when that transition happened?
As I was pivotal moment, I'm not sure, but when I think about my business, it's not just affecting me and my business. I have 165 associates that depend on the success of my business because it supports their families and et cetera. And so I think there was a time, obviously COVID was we were doing a little bit prior to COVID, but COVID was a huge impact to our industry. And getting calls from our congressmen to say, hey, how are you guys doing? And having that open line to say, hey, we need this, or hey, they haven't declared our state a disaster from COVID yet. Every other state's, things like that, being able to contact our policymakers, our government officials to say, you need to get these things done. That was a pivotal moment. I think most recent case that we had is we had on my local level, we had a city hotel motel tax audit, and it came back on like the day after Christmas to all the hoteliers in town, in which we're like, what is this? We've never seen this. And you pop it to us with 10 days to respond the day after Christmas. And so I, put in calls, wrote a letter to the mayor and the city, where they did a fireside chat where I was on the stage with 3 other government officials debating them as the lone hotelier, saying this is not right, this is not how it should be. Fast forward, with the help of our association and other local community, we got the ordinance changed to be a little bit more fair for both parties. And so that's advocacy. Finding an issue that's affecting you personally, and then discussing, dialogue, debating, following through, and getting actual things changed and coming to a solution. So I think it's important people say, don't just give up. I can't do anything. You can make change.
Well, it's an incredible thing because you've got 2 important lessons. One, when you look at the Federal Reserve and you said you manifested being on the board. I think it was probably a little bit more than that. Yeah. But the things, you're sitting there with your first bank loan 15, 16 years ago, and fast forward to today, and now you're in a role that impacts that. And same thing, you have a personal issue that affects you and your colleagues and your employees in your community, and fast forward, you're able to make real change that impacts everyone more broadly. Well, you knew this one was coming because I have made no secret about how many times I am requesting and sourcing and recommending you to be on different panels for different conferences, different trade publications. Mm-hmm. You did tell me that this is the first podcast you've been on, so I'm delighted about that. Yeah. I would love to hear you talk a little bit about your public speaking journey, obviously testifying before Congress, having the role with the Federal Reserve, the other organizations, your elected officials. There's a lot of ways we can public speak. It isn't just at a conference. How do you feel about it generally? How do you prepare for it? Are you nervous? Do you think that it's something that you enjoy, but you don't make time for? Like, what does that journey look like for you?
So yes, to a lot of those things. I definitely do enjoy it. I just don't make the time for it, as you know, very, very, very well until, but I think for myself, it's of course we're human. I mean, we get nervous. Who doesn't get nervous? We have that moment of self-doubt and nervous. But when you're speaking about your day-to-day life and your day-to-day job, it just now feels natural. I'm just talking to you about things I talk about and see and do every single day. Sometimes I might not remember, but there's always that moment of nervousness. But then I'm looking and digging into the facts of my 30-year career and journey, and just able to speak to you like without a script, So. And prepare, of course, I want to prepare a little, make sure everything's done before, but you don't want to be over prepared where you are, again, memorizing a script. So I think, and just take breaths. I think a lot of it is breathing exercise right before, just like take a few deep breaths and then just go.
I love that. Mm-hmm. So it's preparation, and being nervous a little bit is okay, but not keeping you ultimately from saying yes and doing it. Well, I'm glad you said yes for sure for this one. I also want to talk a little bit about the amount of conversation right now about the desire for a more diverse industry at the leadership level and what that looks like for rising leaders in the next generation. One area we hear a lot is that in finance, there are not as many women. And as a CFO, as someone who is deeply involved in the banking community, do you think that there is truth in that? Is that more of an optic or a narrative? And what would you advise or share with other women about the finance track in the hospitality industry?
When I first started 15 years ago, it was definitely a man's world, male dominated. I think I was so excited if I would go to a bank and see like a woman loan officer, because I would only have conversation with them in the males. Early on in our career, when we were looking for financing, they would call Pete, even though I was the CFO. They would continue to call him, but he was great. He would be like, well, I don't have the answer. If you need something, you need to call Tina, And so as they continued to start engaging with me and knowing I was going to be the one that provided the answer, and I kind of built a reputation, now they all call me. But it definitely was an uphill battle, it wasn't immediate, like, oh, Tina's the person we need to go to for, any financial questions or for P&Ls or negotiations of interest rates. And so that was definitely an uphill battle. But I think that also gave me the reputation of, okay, hey, there's this girl, she's Promise Hotels, and she's the one negotiating the deals for them and doing all the financial background. So, finance is, whether it's our industry or any industry, it's 100% impacts everything. So I think it's you have to have a natural ability about math, and it can be taught for sure, but not to be scared about it. It's not difficult. I mean, I'll tell you my story. I went to school for biology. I have no academic background in finance. Everything I know, I learned on my own. I learned it from, researching, reading, or calling on my network, or attending conferences and learned about finance. So if I can do it without an academic degree, oversee 150 million in assets on the financial part, and be on a Federal Reserve Bank board, and I currently serve as a board director on a $2 billion community bank locally, anybody can do it. You just have to put in the effort and want to learn it.
Well, I love the message behind that too, of setting out to develop those new skills, to be curious, again, a common theme here, but also that you had the ability to find resources to learn each of those things that you had to learn. I'm curious, as you were doing that, Promise has grown from, again, a single hotel asset into a management company. As you progressed as the CFO, first in a single unit and then as a different style and structure of company, as well as with all of your staff and your teams, I'm sure you came across things that you didn't know how to do on a regular basis. How do you set out figuring out where to develop those skills, where to look for? And I know you mentioned your network, probably a great way too, of the re-emphasizing the importance of knowing who to call for what. But how did you set out to develop some of those skills?
So the first thing is I went to our conferences, our national industry conferences, whether it's lodging or our franchise conference or Hunter, and learned. I went to those classes. I remember everyone saying, oh, she's going to make it to every class. I did. I went to HOA and I went to every class, and I learned as much as I could. I think back when we were starting out our career, one of the associations had where you can go and visit existing management companies who kind of show, you spend a day with them just showing how things are. And that was huge. That was huge for me to learn of how to organize our company. And again, whether it's national, even locally, I would go to local small business seminars. I'd go to our state lodging association seminars. I'd go on I was on a podcast or a seminar online yesterday learning, and I can still learn stuff. So that's huge, is just put yourself out there, go to these conferences, and don't be afraid to call people or ask questions. Don't be afraid to cold call people and ask them and say, hey, how do you do this? That's how I honestly learned. I didn't go to college for this career, but the whole world is out there for you to learn from, and you got to keep learning. I'm still learning to this day.
I love that continuous learning for sure. One of the other things, as Promise continued to grow, it originally starts in Pete, and now, as you mentioned, you have so many associates and a large team. As you're looking to build out your teams, whether it's your leadership teams or the hotel teams, what are you looking for that you can pinpoint? This is the right person. Obviously, everybody has their resumes and their skills there, but what is the it thing that Tina looks for when you're like, this is the offer I want to make?
This one's easy. It's attitude and honesty. That's it. Just from my history in this business, I can't teach good attitude and I can't teach honesty. We can teach you the technical skills. Like in this industry, it's it's easy to be upwardly mobile. We can train you on the job training. And so that's one thing that is non-negotiable to me. You have to come in with a hospitality heart and customer service ability. And so smiling and being a happy person, a positive person we need, and then just honesty, to work with your colleagues, with us, that, truth and honesty is very important to us. I'll give you a quick example. So one of a housekeeper started out with us in 2001, and fast forward to now, she's still with us 20 plus years later, and she's overseeing 2 of our hotels as a regional manager. And so that makes me proud. That was us on the job training from her, but it was also her showing, hey, I want this to be my career. I want you all to take a chance on me, teach me, guide me. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And so that's a proud moment. We have several employees that have been with us 15, 20 years. And one of my controller she's actually out of Texas when we used to own a hotel in Texas. And she, for the last 12 years, drives from Texas to Tulsa just to work for us every other week. And I said, why do you do that? You can easily. She goes, no, I love your culture, and I love working for Promise, and I'm going to do it until I'm retired. So that's a proud moment for me to talk about. So.
Well, and that's a reflection on, like you said, the culture that you've created and how you all are hiring and leading those teams. I want to turn to something else that isn't necessarily specific to women, but is more often attributed to women, which is that our voices in our head can be holding us back, or can be negative in some way, and they can be louder than the people that are championing us or telling us that we have skills or strategies or providing opportunities. Do you experience any self-doubt? And if so, what are some of the ways that you work to overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, you go through your day. There's lots of times I've thought, well, do I deserve to be in this room? Do I belong here? And you can get inside your own head. And again, I've had mentors as well that said, you deserve to be in that room. They need you for your knowledge. They need diversity of knowledge in there. And so you can doubt yourself slightly, but then put it aside and say, think positive. So a lot of the way I overcome those moments, like how lucky I am to be here, how lucky that I've got knowledge that I can provide and have a voice in this room or be at this table. And so just trying to flip the perspective is what I would say, is just think about the positive. Don't self-doubt yourself. You belong here and you deserve to be here, and how lucky you are to be here. And so that's usually how because there's, our industry, we've had so many ups and downs, and that's what you have to do is, what's the worst that can happen, and how lucky you are to at least get to go through that. As I look back in my industry, the biggest lessons I've ever learned is always through the hardest times.
Yeah.
And so, you don't think about that when you're going through it, but as I look back and think, my God, those were the best lessons. And each one of those moments have made me stronger. And so, I feel like I can take on anything. And again, what's the worst that's going to happen? You have your health, right? Without your health, there's nothing else matters at that point. So
I love the rewriting the narrative in your own head. That's such an important lesson. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Tina, for many of us, we have a guiding star or a phrase that we repeatedly say, and yours might be like, how fortunate I am to be.
Yeah.
If that is it, that I probably just stole your thunder, but is there a guiding star for you, or a mantra that you say that really forms how you make decisions, how you want to live your life?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of them, is a perspective, changing the narratives, and just a positive, because no matter what you're going through, there's people that are going through worse things, whether it's in their business or personal life. So I always look at that. I have my health. I have a great family. I'm loved by my family. I have great children. I have great community. So, you got to lean on those positive things. The second is, I try to be curious and not judgmental. Always look at what people's journey are, whether it's my employee or a family member or an irate guest. Okay, what's happening? Let's not just go rush to judgment. Be curious and find out what's their journey before we make a judgment on somebody. We don't know what they've been going through to make them, whether they're an irate guest or an employee that's just not working well with people. Let's find out what's going on.
That's a really great piece of advice. When you look back now, this is one of my favorite questions to ask and to ask others. You look back at 20-year-old Tina studying biology,
Yeah.
expecting maybe to be moving to Texas from Kansas City.
Yeah.
What would you tell that young girl today, either about how things worked out for you or maybe something that you wish you knew then that might have made things different or easier for you along the way?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is what I tell my kids. And it's hard when you're young to appreciate that, but youth is your most valuable asset. Your youth. And so looking back, if I had known what I'd known, in my youth, things would be a lot more different. But use your youth wisely. I would say the other advice to my younger self is success is not a straight line. It goes up and down, up and down. And like I said earlier, your best skill set is going to come out through the hardest moments in your life. And I think that's so true.
Turning adversity into strength. Incredible.
Yes.
Well, we are wrapping up on time, and you've shared a lot of great advice today. I'm curious, as you think about the motto for It's Personal Stories, which is empowering personal success, what is a piece of final advice you would share with our audience?
Just do it. Like I said, with the youth, don't have analysis paralysis, I think they call it. Take the step. If you've been wanting to do things, just do it. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And that if I could go back in time, I'd do a lot more things earlier in my life than later. And so youth is your asset. Use it wisely. And why not, take the jump.
Yeah, I love that we don't know that we are guaranteed tomorrow, and certainly making sure to take advantage of opportunities. Well, I am so excited you said yes. I need you to say yes more, but I'm excited that you said yes to this one. I'm really appreciative for you sharing your story on behalf of the industry, what you do for advocacy and for our communities and for our industry as a whole is really admirable, and one of the many reasons that I admire you. But I want to just say thank you so much for joining the show today, and really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Rachel, and thank you for giving me a platform. Appreciate it.
And to our audience, we know you have a lot of ways to choose to spend your time. So thank you so much for tuning in. And we hope you'll head over to itspersonalstories.com to hear from other incredible hospitality industry leaders like Tina, who have also shared their personal journeys and their leadership insights as well. Thank you again, Tina.
Thank you.